Which is wonderful. It's so good to be alive. Welcome to Expitality Outdoors. This is where we explore the transformational power of outdoor hospitality through real conversations with the people building it. Today's episode is sponsored by Expitality Outdoors. And I am Michelle Oliver, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Charlie Boyne. Charlie, I love your lights in the background.
Thanks. Yeah, I just chose them today. I thought it was fitting.
Yeah, it is very fitting. And you and I have known each other for quite a few years now. You've been very active in the outdoor hospitality space in a lot of different roles. And now you are helping, and you can help me if I say this incorrectly. But basically what you're doing now is helping small businesses, outdoor hospitality businesses, as well as any type of small business with their early stage funding, which is very often the most difficult time for a small business to be funded. And you have some really creative solutions for that. Did I get that right?
Precisely. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we are just very spontaneously jumping on a call today because Charlie and I were having a conversation the other day about Marriott postcards getaway, which is all one in a way now. And so many interesting things in the news, as everyone knows. But we were simply having a conversation about Charlie's experience staying at postcards. And I do think it's really helpful for people to hear from an actual guest who has stayed at these different types of properties. Everybody knows that glamping, that term covers a pretty big range of possibilities. Like, what does it actually mean? We ask ourselves after staying at four different, very diverse properties, right? So, um, we were looking at some pictures of the accommodations, and I asked Charlie if he would come on and just share his feedback. We're going to cover a bunch of different stuff, but Charlie, how about, first of all, why were you going to stay there? What was your motivation like initially?
I think it was, I realized that there was one not far from here in New Orleans. And it was just a few months after they got bought out by Marriott, that when they became Postcard. So I think it was within a couple months of it having transitioned to Postcard from Getaway. And yeah, I think they're just on my mind that much more often. And finally it was like I'd always wanted to stay, see what's going on there. And I think especially after that, um, it was just clear to me that you know, and what I'm excited to get into today is whether or not you like that experience as a guest, whether or not that's what you want, where you would go glamping. That's clearly the math Marriott did. Marriott spent, I think there's a few years where they were loosely partnered with each other through, I forget who else it was. Um, and yeah, so I was really curious to say, sort of go actually look and touch the thing that Marriott said from all their math was the future of the industry that they were willing to put their money on. So yeah, so I booked it, I stayed, and it was an awesome experience. I loved it. I'm very much the market that it's geared towards. But additionally, looking at it from a development standpoint, I saw more than how awesome my guest experience was. I saw how the math works out for Marriott from their perspective. And I think I saw some extremely distinguishing factors between that business structure and a lot of the other, there's tons, obviously, of glamping business structures out there, but
Mhm.
this one really impressed me for what I was estimating of all the math.
Okay, because you love that most, let's start with dessert, okay? And which is the Marriott math. And of course, they're such a huge corporation, they're going to have strategy at the core of what they're doing. So share with me, like what is that? What do you see that they made good decisions about? What is the strategy, basically?
First of all, sort of, the basics, close to major cities. I think I was an hour and a half drive, which is sort of right within that sort of drive window that we often talk about. So,
Mhm.
so pretty perfectly located. And then the roads I found where it was a big one. It's just gravel roads. It's just packed gravel roads. So immediately their infrastructure costs are minimal. And if I remember, some of this is still from some vague memory of researching them. And I know that even as Getaway, they evolved a lot along the way. I mean, obviously they
Mhm.
became something that Marriott bought.
Yeah.
Um, but at least at the beginning, I think their business strategy was leasing the land. And so really being cognizant of those infrastructure investments, I think that becomes huge for at least, gaining investors, not to mention just, even if it all goes well, just for getting the confidence of investors. They don't want to see a lot of their money going towards improving land that the lease could end on. So the gravel roads and then the very minimal units themselves. So I think they sort of did a great job of tapping into a rustic. I think a lot of times in the industry, people use the word rustic to say that they did it cheap. Um,
Uh,
but
yeah.
but there is a rustic out there. There's a
Mystery
genuine.
words. Yeah.
What's that?
I said mystery words. The
Exactly.
words that sound great but could mean any, it's a Pandora's box, basically.
Yeah. But there is a nice version of rustic, and I think that they nailed it.
Yeah.
And I think that they really. One thing that I thought was cool was there's a lockbox to encourage you to put your phone in. And then they've got a red phone on site, like a dial phone that goes to whoever's on site for a human's help. They've got an FM st radio in there with a printed out list of what FM stations are in your area. So they really encourage you to go with that disconnect. So I think off the bat, they're trying to create a customer experience that's not about having all the bells and whistles and all of the things at your disposal um, and 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 that. So I think that um, they set that up well and they encourage it in a really cute way, in a very thoughtful way. Um, and so yeah, so I think they tap into that market that way. And then the units themselves, I think there's a 16-foot by 8.5-foot unit. In terms of square footage, it's tiny. The setting process was they just parked the trailer and they've got just jacks under it, under the four corners, that I guess they tweak as time goes on and maybe have to resettle it on top of the pavers they have down below. But also with a unit that small, the 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 mini splits, the air conditioning is a minimal investment as well. So again, you're looking at that lower infrastructure. I forget what amps. I remember taking a picture of the electrical box, but not high costs for installing electric. And then I think they had a septic system out there. Um, but yeah, it was all pretty basic. And so I think, I estimated the units. I feel like if I know that the first ones were actually built by I think one of the founders' dads.
Yeah, that
Um,
was
is
interesting, wasn't it?
the
I mean,
yeah.
what's great about that is how scrappy it came about. And I mean, we hear a lot of those stories, but oftentimes they fall flat or construction loan comes due and they can't get to the next level. Or, I mean, there's a million reasons and ways a business cannot make it. So it's always fun and encouraging to hear that the beginning is, it's always, not always, but often it's the same. We have this dream, we've got this creativity, we have this skill and then it turns into something. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, no. And which parts of it they sort of kept scrappy. Because
Ah,
frankly, the exteriors were not incredibly high quality lumber. Just from a construction background myself, I was able to identify, they had knotted wood, but they did put Bondo on top of those knots, so they treated it properly. And they painted the whole thing. It's just which is one black paint. So I think they really kept those construction costs down. One thing that I think everybody should keep in mind that I thought was another great example of lowering costs in a way that really improves the customer experience was no doors on the cabinets. It was all
what?
sort of open cabinetry. And for
Oh,
people
no
who,
doors on the
yeah,
cabinetry, not on
yeah.
the actual accommodation. There's a door.
Oh yes, yes, on the accommodation.
Raccoons
Yes,
don't
there's a
come
way
in
to
and
get, yeah, yeah,
out. Okay.
there's a front door and a bathroom door.
And no doors on
Um,
the, yeah, never mind. We won't go down. Okay.
um, but yeah, and I think,
Now you
especially.
found that charming, Charlie.
No, less than charming. It's more just practical. If your guests are only staying 1 or 2 nights, they're not going to learn your cabinetry. And that's something that you sort of have to get
Oh,
settled into every time you walk
interesting.
in. Where are the plates? Where are the bowls? Where are the forks? Where are the knives?
Ah,
But when it's
okay.
open, and if I'm just passing through, like, it's It's not the prettiest kitchen, but it is the easiest to use as somebody who just showed up and is like, "Where's the fork? There it is." Um, so I think that it's and they also know that they're tapping into a market that is 1 to 2 nights. I doubt many people are staying 3 nights. And so again, by identifying that market and knowing who you're tapping into, and I bet that for their operation costs, they've calculated precisely how many units they can have on a property, expecting a 2 to 3 night stay or a 1 to 2 night stay. Um, and I think that they know how many units can maximize the use of what I estimate to be 2 people always on property. I think they've always got at least two. I'd hope three. Um, but yeah, so I think that yeah, it's again, it's less about being extremely accommodating and more about it's that sort of rusticness without inconvenience. It's not like there's not a fork. They've got everything you need. You could show up unexpectedly without your suitcase, without anything. And there's a toothbrush, there's toothpaste, there's firewood, a lighter, there's snacks in there that you could show up and eat for a couple of days with dehydrated snack food and stuff, but it's good stuff. Um, so yeah, so while it's rustic, it was so impressive how much hospitality I still felt, especially considering
Wow.
the fact that I never interacted with a human at any point.
Yeah.
And from the time I booked, their welcome emails were great, their texts were great. They texted me a playlist that was, I think, based on the distance from New Orleans to the stay.
No
Um,
way.
yeah,
That's
they're like, hey, here's a
brilliant.
road trip playlist. And it had me, and that sort of stuff got me excited about my stay. And then they also made sure to text me. They're like, hey, download this PDF map of the property before you get here in case your phone company doesn't have service when you get here. That way you can still navigate it. So they really thought of all of these little steps along the way. Um, Thought what could keep this person from unplugging and putting their phone away? Oh, they can't call for help. They can't call the front desk. So they put their red phone in there. Oh, they might want to play music. So they put the radio in there. So they really do ask you to go bare bones, but yeah, there's still a lot of accommodation to everything that you're giving up. And ultimately, it was lovely for me coming from the city to just go the first night there. I just burned through 2 bundles of firewood and I only spent one night there. And that was great. Just going out into the woods and burning 2 bundles of firewood. It was lovely. It was a few hours. Then the rest of the time, I just sat basically pressed up against the big window, looking at the trees, reading a book, listening to some FM radio. And it was a lovely getaway.
Wow.
Um, and it had nothing to do with the structure. It had nothing to do with, like the quality of the lumber that was the shelter or anything
Yeah.
like that. The bathroom was basic, but it was good. It was not a porta potty. It was fine. But I didn't hang out in there. I hung
Yeah.
out in the bed with my face pressed against the window. Um, and
This is so fascinating to me because in this simple conversation, I have gone from I would never stay there. As you understand our first conversation, I was like, what is the appeal exactly? I mean, I kind of get the concept, but I've gone from that position to really appreciating the concierge service that you are experiencing. They're taking you by the hand and guiding you into this experience, which is one of the most significant areas where people, I believe, don't show up. They don't show up for they forget that the relationship starts on the website and then you book and then what happens in your brain between the time you book and the time you get in the car or the plane or whatever, that's an opportunity missed by almost everyone and they jumped on that. I really find that amazing. It's very smart. I mean, it's very obvious, but often we miss the obvious, right? And the other thing that I find interesting is your self-awareness around your actual needs. This that you don't want to have to open all the cupboards. So when you're saying that, I'm seeing like really high-end finishes with uh, carved glass and like a different option for that that is more in line with where I might want to stay. And initially, I was thinking, as you were talking at the beginning, Yeah, this is kind of like the elevated Moonrise Kingdom experience where if you grew up as a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout like I did, sleeping on the ground, like, I don't want a tent. We're just, why would we even have a tent? So in those days, that would be like the elevated YMCA cabin where you're like, oh, cool, we're in a little house. But actually it's a really little niche and they're helping educate you as to the value of it. And then you get there and you are it. You're transformed, right? So how did it change you from the time you booked until the time you left? What was your, I hate using the word transformational, but
Yeah.
it's the, it's next.
Yeah, I think especially with with the focus on unit design, it was the most exciting thing was to realize um, I think how much we're inclined to think that it's the unit that is the star of the show in
Mm,
outdoor hospitality, and really it's not. It's a tool bag, I think. It's does it meet my needs and does it get me into the nature that I want, that I'm here for, that this whole thing is branded around. Um, and those can be met very sufficiently, with a nice flush toilet, good running water, hot water, cozy bed, and some concierge service, without breaking the bank and without even heavy infrastructure. Um,
mm,
without a lot of these huge expenses that you have on the front end. Um, and then you know me, my thought is, whatever is lacking in terms of guest experience inside that unit, you can have built on site in the form of, either an open deck or a screened-in
mm.
porch or a closed-in porch if you want to get glass walls for it. Like you can create however much more space you want to bring in luxury elements. But to be able to have the kitchen and the bathroom and at least one solid sleeping space with a big, gorgeous window on it, to be
Yeah,
able to have that show up in the size of an 8.5 foot by 16 foot thing that you can also ultimately tow away as soon as you want.
yeah, that's
Um,
smart. And
Down a gravel road,
mm-hmm.
like a lot of these 30-foot units with 2 bedrooms and full kitchen and all of this, they're going to have trouble on a lot of, with such light road construction. So it really opens up tons of opportunities to. And then I spent, I think, between the late checkout fee and the dog fee, I ended up spending $330 for the night.
That was my next question. Well, so they've kind of flipped things on its head, things um, where the amenity becomes a distraction. So rather than an amenity, so you're not having like, oh, the wellness building is over here, the gym is over here, the community center is over here. All of those are considered distractions to the meaning that the property is providing for you. I think they have added like some with little decks, like you're mentioning, where maybe there's a hot tub or
Yeah.
whatever, which is easy to do, but it still focuses on the core brand, which is honestly, I love the name Postcards, but I loved Getaway as well because it's more of a
It's spot
herb.
on.
It's more of an, yeah, I don't know why they changed it, but um anyway, okay, I know you need to run and this was just a short conversation, but it was so lovely. And the next conversation I would have with you, if you want to, is about what is happening with Sun and Hip Camp, which is another
Yeah.
concept that you had introduced me to that I balked at and like, oh, this is evil. So isn't it interesting what happens? And maybe that's another conversation we could have just to get people talking. I want to hear from
Yeah.
other people. So please, anyone that watches this, share in the comments, like, what are your thoughts? And I'm just curious. It's always just wonderful to learn and be curious. And I hope everybody gets outside if you can and sees the lights that
And
Charlie has the fake ones behind
and
him.
I would add to that, and I'd go stay at some of these places that you think are
Yeah.
interesting and see how they that the biggest thing for me was going through the guest experience of this place that we've talked about so much and actually touching it. And there's nothing ultimately, the cost of a night is worth the industry research to actually touch what we're talking about so often. So yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. Always love
Oh,
talking to
thank
you.
you. That's all great advice, and that's a great place to land and to leave. Everyone go stay somewhere. And then I just would love to hear from you. What, any place you stay, what was your experience like? Different places for different people, right? Or be different when you leave. Anyway, I
Yeah.
could go on forever. Okay, have a wonderful day. Talk
Thanks,
soon.
you too, Michelle.